nerds, welcome to another episode of REDtalks.live. I'm your host Nathan Pierce. You are awesome, and we are going to talk about network infrastructure automation. This is something I've been working intently on for a number of years, but specifically about something really interesting, a new approach, and I want to share it. Now, I dropped a diagram showing a workflow out on LinkedIn couple days before New Year's, and I was very surprised and quite humbled that it got several thousand views. And I thought, I'm going to show you guys the architecture and workflow behind that diagram. Gonna couple of boring slides up front, helps for the context, and then we're going to jump into just demonstrating how it works, and at the end I'll explain like what were all the parts there and why is that really cool. So, as Batman might have once said, to the demo copter. So, DevOps did a fantastic thing for streamlining and making far more reliable that process of development through to ops to get into production. However, for many organizations, and we talked about this in episode 68, avoiding continuous disappointment, we still have manual deployment. That is largely networking and security operations. You'll see that fabulous continuous disappointment on the right. CLI and GUI driven industry. Now, DevOps shone a huge operationally inefficient spotlight on that part of the data center, the deployment chain. The response, the networking and security industries came out with automation and device management technologies. However, it was still people feeding that automation, be it Ansible playbooks, be it Python scripts, be it device management tools provided by the vendor. There was still this disconnect between the continuous delivery on the left there and then the eventual automated deployment happening afterwards. So we kicked the continuous disappointment can slightly down the road, and now we still have tickets and then automation, that fabulous ITIL process that we all love to get in the way of deploying our value, our productivity improving or revenue generating value that we desperately need to get in front of those who can benefit from it. I'm going to quickly flick now over to our fabulous Instruct Lab. This is a platform through which we can deploy technologies into the cloud. Here is a fabulous example of the infrastructure we've built here. I've already run through the steps beforehand in this online workshop. I've built out the infrastructure, the Consul cluster, Vault. We've got an F5 big IP deployed. We've got a Palo Alto Firewall deployed. In fact, let's fire them up and log into them. You're going to see some IP addresses. These IP addresses are not permanent and will vanish shortly after. So here's my infrastructure. Let's quickly log in. The old "this is unsafe" command. All right, so we're into our big IP. You'll see, looking back at this infrastructure diagram, let's quickly take a look to prove the magic that is this demonstration. So nothing's on here, no VIPs. Look at all partitions, no pools. Fabulous. In fact, let's bring up the network map tool, all positions, nothing, empty, zero config. Let's do the same with a Palo Alto Firewall. So we'll just quickly bring this up, show you that I'm not cheating here in any way. Alrighty. On the Palo Alto Firewall, we have policies and that in place, but there's no destinations. Did I type something wrong just then? Did I copy the wrong password just then? I didn't copy the password, did I? That'll explain it. Nothing like a well-rehearsed video of a technical solution. There we go, magic. All right, I've got my Palo Alto Firewall. This has just been created minutes ago using the wonders of Terraform and its infrastructure as code capabilities. And we got some policies in here. Let's take a look at this. Security policies using an address group that allows communication from the big IP through to the app. And then look at that dynamic address group. And it's presently empty. Okay, great. So nothing's configured yet. And this is because we're demonstrating that painful operational complexity and opportunity for error and failure that is managing network infrastructure. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set this running, and then I'll talk a little bit more. So we've got wonderful Terraform out here that's going to build it for us. Consul Terraform Sync is what I'm going to install. This Terraform definition is going to create a virtual machine on the cloud platform in the background, and then it's got a little script that's going to run that'll install Consul Terraform Sync, and it will connect that into Consul. If you're not familiar with Consul, Consul is a fantastic solution when deployed with your applications. It knows where everything is. It can inform you when something's healthy and available, when it's not. It also brings zero trust security. It defines what can reach what within that environment. This is where we're solving this problem, this gap between, this handoff from the application to the infrastructure. What's been missing, going back to our fabulous diagram in the middle here, is a trusted source of truth. How do I know the information provided to me is reliable, is always current in the current state of the application, and isn't going through a person, which could incur delays of days, weeks, hours, months in some cases? How do I bridge this gap of getting the right state up to the minute, immediately, and applied to my infrastructure? So the bit that's missing from those examples I gave before, we saw huge evolutions in the network industry of tooling and Python scripting, Ansible playbooks. A person still had to be sitting here to run that, or log into the device management tool and click things and make sure that that happened. Consul Terraform Sync is that conduit between Consul, the all-seeing and all-knowing, and that network automation. So by now, let's just take another quick look. It's still building. It takes a couple of minutes to boot up that virtual machine before it can quickly install the relevant code. Just for funsies, let's take a look at what's going on here. Super simple. Creating a NIC, creating a virtual machine, running my install script with some variables being passed through to that. If you want to look at my install script, at first glance, it looks big and scary. Nope, just creating some directories, grabbing a binary off of our release site, and then setting up some systemd services because we like to have things run and survive reboots. There's really not a lot there at all. And then down here, our configuration file, we're going to go through that after you've seen it working and doing its magic. So we'll let that finish running. Go back to this. It's finished. It's running fantastic. Let's go back to Consul. Has it registered itself with Consul? It is now up and running. Consul Terraform Sync. Let's go back to our Palo Alto Firewall. Oh, look. It's got the 2 front-end web servers, and then we'll go to the big IP, and we'll do a refresh. It's got a VIP created that wasn't there before, and it's got the 2 web front-end pull members in there as well. In fact, let's just go in here and hey presto, configuration set up and done. Now all I've done is install Consul Terraform Sync. Let's go look at the configuration file of why did it take this state that it knew about in Consul and apply that to the infrastructure to ensure that the value derived from those services was applied, but in a secure and highly available fashion through the network infrastructure deemed a requirement by the enterprise that implemented them in the first place. Well, what happened is Consul Terraform Sync has registered itself with Consul, so it's seeing updates, and we've told it to listen out for things that are specifically tagged with a certain, wait for it, tag. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so here's our configuration file that is installed with Consul Terraform Sync. It is this simple, honestly, crazy simple. Okay, there's a couple lines off the screen. First, what we do is we tell it, these are the drivers that you are going to work with. F5 Networks, Palo Alto, pretty straightforward. This is some credentials that we're going to use to talk to those devices. Just before the creation of this lab, we have added the ability to store these credentials into Vault as secrets, so you no longer have to keep them in this file. Wasn't that great of us? I will update it in due time. Down here, we register tasks that are used by those providers and drivers. This is where it tells it when to do things and what to do. For example, this F5 task, it says, use that big IP provider up here, and I want you to pass on anything that's going on related to web. Same thing for the firewall, just the web servers. So now, instead of having a loose-grain firewall that's just forwarding to a destination subnet, I now have a tight policy that says, you know what, these are just the servers that are running at this exact moment in time, but Consul is going to change that policy anytime any change happens to the servers as well. I know, I'm impressed too. So let's make some changes. Let's do some things to this. First, we'll just skip ahead to the next challenge so you can see how cool this Instruct platform is. Look at that, it makes sure I did the right thing and that it's up and running before we skip ahead. Now's when we insert some hold music. Okay, so just to see where this is fitting in here, what we've done is we've filled this manual handoff opportunity to fail or breach security opportunity with Consul and Consul Terraform Sync. So Consul is that up to the moment state of the application. Consul Terraform Sync is the conduit between that state and the network infrastructure using the power of Terraform and those modules and providers that are already a part of the wonderful Terraform community. Take a look at registry.terraform.com or HashiCorp. It's one of those two. Terraform registry, look it up, you'll find it. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add a couple servers so you can see that this thing actually keeps up to speed with what's going on. Let's quickly just set it running. All I'm doing here, as you can see, is I'm running Terraform again, but I'm changing the variables for those scale groups from the default of 2 to 3. Off and racing. Now, the Consul Terraform Sync part's super fast. It's actually way faster than the change to the scale group. So we've got to wait a second for this to run and boot up the virtual machines before we get to see that magic. But it shan't be long. So again, in this one, while that's running, in fact, we're going to watch it from here in Consul. You're going to see these go from 2 to 3. But again, it's not going to interfere with this back-end state because the front end actually has the logic of how to get to the app, and that's all managed dynamically by the web front end, and it's code released by the developers, but access to that front end is what we're automating. So now we have a fine-grained policy on the firewall, and we have a big IP that's automatically updated as needed. As I mentioned before, both of these were deployed using Terraform. In case you're interested, how to do this is actually available online. This is the HashiCorp GitHub account, the Field Workshops console repository, and I've gone into the Instruct tracks, network infrastructure automation. I'll drop this link in the notes of this blog so you can get there, but everything is down here in this assets, Terraform, directory, building the Palo Alto config, etc., Consul Terraform Sync deployment. You already saw this. Okay, so has that finished running in the background? Still going. Let's take a look. Oh, that's booting up now. The health check says it's not seen it finished booting and running. That's why it's currently marked as red, but it'll get there momentarily. And there's the third web server coming up now as well. So once they've finished booting, it won't kick off this workflow unless Consul knows that they are successfully running. It's not going to modify the infrastructure for a service that isn't ready for traffic. So you know it's going to be in a happy, healthy state before anything like that happens. Pretty cool, huh? Alrighty, and as soon as that's finished, here's our app just to prove it's up and running. That's against the servers that were there before. It will continue to run. Okay, the Terraform commands to increase the size of the skeleton group have finished. We're just waiting for those machines to finish booting. Consul is constantly communicating with the agent running in those machines, and the moment that they are healthy, the very moment that they're healthy, it'll report that in. Here we go, the app has finished booting, and the app instances, the processes that run the app are up and running now, so that's why they've been marked healthy. We'll just wait for that web one because there's no trigger on the app, and there it is, the web. So we should see very quickly, let's see if I'm ahead of the game here. Let's run that again. It's already got it. There's the new server dropped onto the end, so it's already updated that policy. As you can see, that did not take long. I mean, that's pretty much immediate once it's marked healthy. There's no delay here. Faster than a person with all of the right data who's perfectly accurate on their keyboard could have entered them themselves. That's pretty rad in my books. So any questions? Again, I'll provide the link to this. It's good to see this this work going on in the automation space. Again, the value here is that Consul sees everything. It is that valuable piece of state that has been missing between these two worlds, which is why we've been trapped in this continuous disappointment space over here. So yeah, Consul Terraform Sync. This is part of HashiCorp's network infrastructure automation strategy. This is currently a technical preview. That said, we've already got customers who have rolled this out into production because they saw the value was so great. They went ahead, tested thoroughly, and just deployed. So it's pretty cool. If you're interested in taking a look at this, running through the lab, please do reach out and get in touch. We'd love to talk. That's been today's episode. Thanks for listening.